the first athletes from that, from that first wave of Philadelphia City Rowing. And so, it was interesting because when Philadelphia Rowing started out, we had like this little yard on Boathouse Row. Like it wasn't like a boathouse or anything like that. It was just a yard that was cut out at the end. And we had boats donated by Princeton that was pretty much stacked up on top of each other. And we had back then there was it's the Cosmic Cafe now, but in Loyal Hall the Cosmic Cafe didn't exist, and it was like a storage room. And so that was like part of our erg room, and then upstairs, which was also empty, but part of Loyal Hall was a erg room as well. And so we just worked out in both those spaces, and we just played like we made do what we got, played the cards that we was dealt. And it was good because you had kids, inner city kids from different parts of the city. You had kids from different schools, but all coming to be one team. And it became a really huge camaraderie, I would say. I mean,
what's good, everybody? Welcome to RowingCast. I'm super excited about this episode today. This is an old internet friend turned friend in real life. I'm looking up to this dude when I was in, an upperclassman in high school, learning his journey. I think at the time he was thinking about what schools he was going to go to. He ended up going to Australia for a little bit. And then later on, about like 2017, 2018, I got to meet him in real life in his hometown of Philadelphia. I'm super excited to have him on the podcast today. This is an episode that Corey is along the road as well. So I want to introduce my brother, Maurice Scott. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's funny as I think about it. Like, bro, I think it was Twitter when you reached out and was thinking about what schools you were trying to go to, and it was interesting because I was also still like trying to figure out my journey. But one of the things I thought about is just like, even though you may not be exactly where you are, there's still someone else that wants to be where you are right now, in that space and time. And it's just like there's somebody always watching. And for me, I'm just like, wow, that was amazing, for you to like reach out and want to know how to get certain places. And it just reminded me on why I do what I do. And I think now that you're through the sport, you've been matured through the sport, like there's people that's looking up to you in the exact same way. And so it's just special to kind of see that full circle moment.
Yeah, I could agree with that perspective thing, man, because you never know, like, when you're talking to somebody and they're looking up to you like, oh, he's in this spot or whatever, while you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm so behind, or maybe you're thinking that way, or I don't know. It's always fun to hear that perspective of just how different people see people in different stages of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into it while we talk to you about, your life and how rowing fit in. For you to go out to another country and just say, I'm gonna find a whole new like avenue, especially for a person of color, that's like unheard of for real. So that was really inspirational to me growing up. So, I got to give you your flowers while we here. So I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. So Maurice, let's talk about it. You're from Philadelphia. What was life like just in general? And then we'll get into the sports.
Man, Philadelphia is one of those cities, bro. I'm be completely honest. Like, you love it, but it's just one of those, major cities, and there's a lot of things that come about growing up, in the inner city. Sports obviously again is a big thing. There's a lot of positive, things, but we also, can't ignore, negative things, with, crime, violence, just trying to find, your way, trying to find, belonging somewhere. Like the city is like that. You either, find your group, or you look, for the group in the streets, or you look for the group in, sports, you look for the group somewhere. Right. And so that, for me, it was like my whole childhood was just trying to find, where, I fit in, and making sure, that I'm doing the right thing, and making sure that I'm not around, just a negative cloud or negative people that, attract just negative spirits. Because again, the city is known, can be known for sometimes for its violence and things like that. And so that was one of the, things that my parents wanted me to be away from. And so they always had me in different extracurricular activities, whether it's chess, whether it's like debate club, whether it's sports, basketball, football, baseball. I did a little bit of everything. But one of the things I will say is that it's also a city that loves hard, and so those that was within my circle supported me through thick and thin, and just going through that journey. It wasn't easy, to be completely honest. I was actually one of the little guys on the street, right? And so growing up, I didn't really find my niche, and I got bullied. I was little, I was scrawny, like I was just a little kid on the block. And so that was kind of rough, trying to figure out, where, like, again, where do I fit into this? Like, I'm not, one of these dudes that's, running the street. I'm also not like, one of the guys that are getting straight A's. Like, I was smart, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't those 4.0, I wasn't that 4.0 kind of kid. And so again, it was just trying to navigate, through that, and honestly building my own self-confidence, self-love. That was that whole journey, growing up in Philadelphia. And I'm glad for it, because once you get to the real world, like, at the end of the day, you're going to have yourself. Like, everybody else may fail around you, but as long as you're solid in yourself, that will carry you throughout life. And that was one of the important lessons that I learned, growing up in the city.
Wow. So I got a question on, like, growing up, you're saying that you have a lot of factors that are forcing you in different spots, right? What was, like, some of the biggest tribulations that you went through to put you on the path to find your end self?
Honestly, like, again, it's trial and error. Like, I mean, meeting different people, and I always say, like, God's timing. Like, it's not like you can try and try again, and you can try to force things. Like, I tried to force my way to fit in. I tried to be the cool guy, like, but it was, again, just trial and error, and the right timing. And so I honestly, to be honest, it took years. Like, I mean, I didn't find my group real much in middle school. Like, I found a group in church, but my typical school, like, day to day, 9 to 5, going to classes, or 8 to 3, whatever the time was. I didn't really find my group, until maybe about ninth grade, my ninth grade year. So all of middle school, I didn't find it. And then my ninth to 10th grade year, leading up to when I found rowing, which was like the ultimate group that I wanted to be a part of, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. That was the journey, was, again, just being comfortable with myself, because I couldn't find a group, to be a part of.
Wow.
Yeah, so in fifth grade, Maurice, you got a little sneak peek of what the future was gonna lie ahead. So let's talk about that. That's your first introduction to rowing, right?
Right. Yeah. So, for me, because I wasn't able to really find my group, find myself, I found strength in other things. One of those other things was being by the water. Like, anytime I was by the water, I just felt at peace. I felt calm. And, I just felt strong. And I really don't know why. I guess it's just a part of me, and I just love just being around it. And so anytime a sport and water came together, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. And so I actually went to a middle school called Maritime Academy, which focused on water based stuff. And so during that time, like, I got introduced to swimming. I got introduced to sailing. I actually got, like, qualified to sail. I had this, like, little sailing book thing that I got signed off on. I don't know how long that lasts. I don't know. I forgot how to do it, so I wouldn't even try it, even if I was still qualified. And then rowing. So Bachelor's Barge Club in Philadelphia actually dropped off some flyers for a 2-week learn and row program. And I was like, yep, I'm doing that, hands down, just like I did all the other sports. But the one thing, that was interesting, was that, this was the rowing didn't take place around the school. It took place on Boathouse Row, which was a place that I didn't really like. I knew about it, but, like, there wasn't really no connection, to it. Besides the fact that the city knew that they would shut down Kelly Drive, in order for them to have the regattas on the weekends and whatnot during, like, the spring and fall season. And so that was, again, a no-brainer. I did it, man. I showed up in my Jordans. I had some black and white 11s on, and had some baggy shorts, a baggy t-shirt, and I still got pictures of when I showed up to where I wouldn't show up like that now, because we know the shorts gonna get caught in the seed, and you know, why would you wear white J's, you know, to practice in nature? Like, what? It's crazy. But yeah, man, I did that and I loved it. But you know, the disconnect between that two learn to row program and actual Bullhouse Row, there was a major disconnect because my family didn't know what to do after, you know, the fact, and on top of the financial burden that the like even trying to, you know, join, you had to know people and things like that, but also knowing the price of what it would take for me as a kid to learn or to continue rowing and to row competitively was just, you know, a lot for any parent, and especially in the inner city. And so I kind of settled back down into, like, you know, soccer and volleyball and just traditional sports, you know, within the inner city.
And before rowing, which sports, I guess, did you really find a liking to? I know you said you really like the water sports, but what was the difference between rowing and those other sports?
I would say, like, the volleyball was, like, I love volleyball. And I think if I didn't have rowing, volleyball would have been the next thing. And then I also played soccer. So, and then baseball was like, but soccer was like a little bit better than the and then volleyball was like, okay, I got a little something, you know, going on. Indoor volleyball, I got a little something happening. And so that, honestly, those sports, the closest sport of those three to rowing, I would say soccer. And the reason why I say that is because my position was midfield. So I was running back and forth. It was like a piston. You're just running because you're playing some defense, you're playing some offense, like you're playing both sides of the field. And so it was a lot of sprinting back and forth. With the other sports, obviously, you know, you can call timeouts, the play stops, all that stuff, and then you just catch a breather. Where obviously we all know rowing, there ain't no timeouts, there ain't no substitutions. Like, you go from start to finish, and you got to go until you pass the finish line. And if you don't, well, bad luck, right? So that's kind of like definitely the difference, and it's a big difference because rowing, you got to push through, like, you got to push through the pain, whereas in basketball you could just time out and then just chill out for a little bit. Ain't none of that, and that's just, you know, it separate. I have some bias, but it separates rowing from majority of sports.
So then let's go back to, you know, high school. I think, was it your upper class era, like 11th grade onwards?
Mhm.
You start rowing for real. What does that look like? And what barriers were you able to get through to end up, like, doing it full time?
Yeah, man. So 11th grade year, Philadelphia City Rowing. Well, it was founded in 2010, which the fall of 2010. And it was a program that provided inner city youth of Philadelphia. If you went to a Philadelphia public school, it allowed you to go and represent, you know, the school district. And so when that opportunity presented itself, I was like, I'm going. I'm going. We're making it happen. And that was that. And so I was one of the first athletes from that, you know, from that first wave of Philadelphia City Rowing. And so, you know, it was interesting because when Philadelphia Rowing started out, we had like this little yard on Boathouse Row. Like, it wasn't like a boathouse or anything like that. It was just a yard that was cut out at the end. And, you know, we had boats donated by Princeton, that was pretty much stacked up on top of each other. And we had, back then, there was the Cosmic Cafe now, but in Loyal Hall, the Cosmic Cafe didn't exist, and it was like a storage room. And so that was like part of our erg room. And then upstairs, which was also empty, but part of Loyal Hall, was a erg room as well. And so we just worked out in both those spaces, and we just played, like, we made do what we got, played the cards that we was dealt. And it was good because, you know, you had, you know, kids, inner city kids from different parts of the city. You had kids from different schools, but all, you know, coming to be one team. And it became a really huge camaraderie, I would say. I mean, some of the guys that, you know, I talked to and got close with, and girls that I talked to got close with, we still talk, you know, to this day. I mean, even at this point, like, they're trying to, you know, plan a reunion, which is awesome, within the next couple of weeks. And so it's dope because I graduated high school in 2012. And so, even fast forward a decade and some change later, like we're still in contact. And, it was like one of the best, decisions of my life. And we talked about, the sense of belonging. Like that was the exact moment where I'm like, I couldn't wait to get, to rowing because this was my sense of belonging. And I knew this is what I was destined to do.
So I know that the culture in Philadelphia, at least Philadelphia rowing, is pretty large. I know sometimes you got these private clubs and you've got these, these like usually like private Catholic schools that have their own teams. Were you guys accepted, in the community right away, or was there a hesitancy along the way? Like, what did that look like?
Honestly, like I definitely felt that our presence, wasn't felt. And, this is part of my spiel when I'm talking to some of the athletes that we help represent with the agency, which again, I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I really didn't feel, that our presence was felt or respected. And definitely I know for a fact people just saw, us as a charity case. Honestly, is like, we got some inner city kids on the water, like, yay, look at them going from start to finish, but didn't really see us as competitive. And so that was just another chip on our shoulders, just like, no, like this isn't one of those things where we're just we're just a number that they can say, oh, look, rowing is diverse, right? We wanted to be able to compete, and we wanted to be able to, like, when you see us, that is going to be a competition. This ain't about to be no easy win at all. And so we did that. And honestly, the first year, the novice 8, we won the city championships. And so against a lot of the other schools that have been around and had history and like just know the sport, like we won with a little yard, maybe the size of, the size of maybe a studio apartment, maybe not a studio apartment, a little bit bigger than a studio apartment, but pretty small. And then a storage room as a erg space. So we didn't have no workout gym or anything like that. We, again, bare bones, from the dirt, we rose and grinded to make a statement known that we're here to stay. We don't need to have the $1 million boat house. We don't need to have the $1,000 gym. We may do what we got and came out on top as city champions.
That's awesome. And I gotta say, Corey, I think Corey and I can definitely relate. Rowing for a public school, not having all the resources, not having the fancy boats, but then showing up to regattas with all the teams that got the fancy new equipment. They're all decked out in whatever wear they're wearing, and we're just rocking what we have. We're gonna play the cards that we're dealt to the max, right? To the best of our ability. So interesting to hear it from your side, because you're a little bit older than us, but it's so great to hear it on your side, and definitely in Philadelphia. I think that's a major moment to actually just kind of like speak on it right now. So
Yeah, no, and I mean, like I said, it was one of those things where the first of its kind. The last time, they had like a rowing team, I think was probably like the early 1990s or 1980s, and it was out of one school. But that was it. It pretty much, died, after, a few years. And so this was really, really cool to see for the city. And it honestly a pathway, because Boathouse Row is in the backyard of Philadelphia. There should be no reason why the inner city doesn't know what happens behind the walls of Boathouse Row.
So you also mentioned that PCR. So it was for all of the different schools within Philadelphia.
Yep.
Was it predominantly one school, or was it a mix of different schools?
It was a mix of different schools. I will say some of the schools, like there were some of the smart schools, so like Masterman Central. We had some from my school, which was Parkway Center City. We had, from Gamp, Kappa. We had some folks from Benjamin Franklin High School. I'm trying. Oh, mathematics, civics, and sciences. We had some from different schools. Those are the ones on the top of my head, but there was definitely some schools from all across the city. Yep.
Any memorable moments, racing in those like 11th, 12th grade years that just come to mind as we're talking about your club right now?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, like I mean, one winning the city championships. I mean, that was huge. That was the goal, that was the plan, and we executed on spot. Again, against a lot of the clubs and programs that have been around for a while. That was one. The grind during winter season, which was like sucked, and was very painful. And that was our first like winter season. Like it truly paid off. I would say my second year. Oh well, no, actually, well after my first year of rowing was pretty huge too, because after my first year of rowing, I went to the Naval Academy crew camp, which again, I didn't even know nothing about the Naval Academy till I started rowing. I didn't know what the heck a military school, what, like I didn't know anything. But one of the mentors, they had like a mentorship system with PCR. I don't know if they have it anymore. But one of my mentor, his roommate went to the Naval Academy, and thought, that would be an awesome goal, to achieve. And during that time, the Naval Academy lightweight program was just killing it. And they were definitely top five programs and top five lightweight program in the nation during that time. And so to be able to go there and go to the camp and get ID'd and be placed in the top group. So I was placed in the varsity group. They had a varsity, JV, novice. They had a bunch of different groups. I was placed in the top group, and I still held my own against a lot of, powerhouses. I mean, one of the powerhouses that was there was like a few kids from Canisius. Like everybody knows Canisius has a really good rowing program, and I was just going against a lot of those guys and holding my own at 145 pounds, 6'1", like, and still pulling that weight. And so now it was really cool. And, by the end of the camp, I got recruited. And I think, Steve Perry, he was the coach during that time. And I ended up getting recruited by the Steve Perry himself. And, it was awesome because that following year, I believe they won IRAs. So like, again, #1 school in the nation for the lightweight program. Like as a kid that only been in rowing for 1 year and to get recruited to the top school in the country, possibly the world during that time is, it's like a match. And so that was, memorable. And the application process that I had to do, like I had to go through in order to get that, like PCR has supported me along that way. Like I had to do like congressional interviews to get congressional nominations, and then I also had to do a fitness test. The fitness test I did at practice, and so during the run, another memorable moment was I think I had to do like a mile run, and at the end of the mile run, it was down Boathouse Row, and all my teammates were on the sides and cheering me on as I had my last kick. It was like the last maybe about 300 to 400 feet of the test, and they were all cheering me on, and they all carried me all the way through until I got as they call the big envelope, and got that invitation to go to the Naval Academy Preparatory School. So that was super. Both of those times were very, very memorable to me.
That's amazing. And yeah, we got to give a special shout out to Steve Perry, man.
Yeah.
Corey coached under Steve. I did too. So
nice.
Pretty dope.
Steve Perry.
That's crazy. And like, and I was like the first to be like recruited, at that level as well. And so like, it was amazing. I mean, I just, if it wasn't for rowing, I wouldn't even thought about it. I mean, let alone the academic side. Like it's harder to get into the Naval Academy than it is to get, into Harvard. So like a lot of to just fathom that. And as an inner city kid as well, that, Denton, Philadelphia schools district doesn't have the best, academic, setup in comparison to a lot of other school districts. And so I was already starting off, disadvantage, honestly, but I was able to grind hard and earn that spot at that time, the best lightweight program in the nation.
Right. And you mentioned how like your teammates pushed you through that last little bit of that one test piece. What else like carried you through all this, like again, all the application process? Like, is it family? Is it just the need to just be the best you can at rowing? Like, what really got you there?
And the motivation, honestly, like, because it was something that, remember I said I love being by the water. And so obviously the Naval Academy, like I was just like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is like the perfect school for me. Like, and I also wanted to give back. I come from a family of civil servants and military. And so giving back was also a big part of why I wanted to also press, for that opportunity, because I could do both. I can go to school, row, not, have that full ride. So everybody at the Naval Academy get paid to go to school. And so to be able to do both, I mean, it was the perfect scenario in my eyes during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I could serve my
So
country after I was done. So like that was like the motivation behind it.
so what did life look like after your senior year?
So after my senior year, I started I started what they call NDOC training at the Naval Academy Preparatory School. So for those that don't know, Naval Academy Preparatory School, they send a lot of the recruited athletes there because one, they may not come from a strong academic background, and to be able to balance being a Division I athlete as well as the rigors of the academic rigors of the Naval Academy. The prep school was that preparation for that. And so I went to the Naval Academy Prep School in Newport, Rhode Island. And that was literally, I started what they call NDOC training, which is essentially like their form of boot camp and like just drilling in, military, right? That was the day before my birthday. So I started July 24th. My birthday was July 25th. And I'll never forget, my mom sent me a little care package with like cookies and whatnot. Yeah, that I didn't get it. It disappeared. And I wasn't going to ask where it went because I was still in that period, and I'm sure one of the people on the upper hand, like one of the supervisors or whomever, probably ate all of it, or just left it somewhere and forgot all about it, and I just never got it. And so that was kind of what life was like at the prep school. One of the things that I had to do was really study and grind, right? There the academic piece, like, I mean, I was learning, I had to do physics, algebra, or not algebra, like pre-calc. There was an English class, and then what am I missing here? I feel like I'm missing something, but those were like some of the classes that I took, and this was like the next level. Like, I wasn't taking like pre-calc. Like, I didn't really step into that realm, during going through the Philadelphia school district. And so I really had to grind and study. Like, I was up until like midnight, 1 a.m. studying, making sure, that I was meeting the mark. At the Naval Academy prep school, you had to get a GPA of 2.0 or higher to move on to Annapolis, Maryland. And so I was grinding out, and I had I had something to prove. Even some of the guys that was there still went to a way better, just school, like a way better school system than I, was introduced to. And so I really wanted to prove that I belong there. And so I was putting in that work, putting in that time, studying, working out, because I still had to maintain my fitness. And that was that. And that was the hardest I've ever worked at the Naval Camp Prep School, like, because I wanted that spot. But unfortunately, about 3 to 4 weeks before graduation, before moving on, they said that they misdiagnosed me with a sleeping disorder, which was like, it was a misdiagnosis. I ended up, going to outside of what the Naval Academy, diagnosed me of having. I went to a specialist, the sleeping disorder specialist. They wrote a whole appeal saying, no, he's fine. This is good. Like, what, he's fine to move on to Naval Academy. And it was a naval, it was a naval officer that was in, like, that was over like that specific like sleeping disorders. So, it wasn't like we were going to like some random doctor. Like, he has been in for some time, a naval officer. And so that was, pretty heartbreaking, to be honest, because going through all of that, working so hard, late nights, early mornings, just grinding, trying to be a good teammate, be a good battle buddy, as we call it, or shipmate, while there, and just working just super hard, and then come to, get there, and you're saying that I can graduate but can't move on. I was one of two people that graduated, didn't move on. The other guy didn't want to go to the Naval Academy anymore, but I graduated. I graduated with a great GPA. It was like, well, once I found out that I wasn't moving on, my grades slipped a little bit, because I was just like, what was the point of doing all that? But I still finished with like a 2.9 or 3.0. And there was guys that I know that had like a 1.9, but because they were a football player, they got him through, and he ended up failing out anyway. So it's just like, it was almost like a slap in the face to me, because it's just like, well, you misdiagnosed me, you don't let me go, but obviously you know that I can meet the requirements, meet the standards, meet everything, but you know, you just let me go. And so that was pretty heartbreaking moment. Yeah.
And how long was that? Was that a year? Was that 2 years?
Yep. So it was a year. It was a year. Yep.
So how did you pivot from there? I know that's heartbreaking. That must have been one of your like biggest dreams. And I know a lot of kids who like go for the Naval Academy, and I know the whole process. So I know that is so tedious. So to get that close and then actually do everything you needed to do to get there, like how
Mhm.
did you deal with that? And how did you pivot from that?
See, I'm be honest, bro. I like that was probably one of the darkest times of my life. Like, I was down, depressed. I was just like, why me? And it was like, man, every other day, man, tears was going down my face because it's just like I put so much effort and so much time in. A lot of people may not ever realize how much work it is to like really do well at the Naval Academy. Like, it takes a lot out of you, and especially coming from again a place where that doesn't prepare you very well academically, and for me to have to do extra and stay up late every single night making sure that my grades were right. Like, I mean, it was like, dang, if I work this hard and then get it taken from me, just like that, like what's the point of doing, working hard anywhere else? Like, it just was what it was. And I gave up rowing, at the same time. And that was a point that I really had to like really just be internal. I realized that the that I kept blaming, the world, even though what happened to me wasn't right. I kept blaming the world and acting like, the world owed me and somebody just needed to give me something. But I kind of came to realize, man, I didn't get anything. Like, because I was depressed, I didn't do anything. I just kind of sat around a little bit. I still worked out, but like I just, I wasn't achieving anything. And I realized that rowing was just a big part of my life, and a big part of the fabric of my being. And so I eventually one day I woke up and I was just like, man, I need to get back in this, man. I'm feeling like I'm outside of my purpose. And I need to get back to it. So what I did was send some footage and some stats to different coaches, around the country, and I ended up getting, 4 or 5 looks from coaches and some offers. But I was just like, you know what? No, I want to take this. I want to do something a little different. And so finding out, I had a full ride to Arcadia University. It was a combination of the school as well as my church, Tabernacle Baptist Church. So I was able to at least get that and still kind of lessen the blow of losing that Naval Academy stuff. But doing a little bit more research and things like that, I realized that I could take my scholarship overseas to a number of schools. And so I was like, I am going to go. I'm a row, and I want to go the farthest I can go. And also at that point, I was also going that during that same time frame. My girlfriend at the time broke up with me like a week before Valentine's Day, and so I was just struggling. Like that whole year, it was just rough. And so yeah, I was like, I'm about to get out of here. And so I found University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. They had a rowing team, and it was right up the street. It was right up the street from the beach. Like, I mean, it was just like, oh, this is I'm pulling the trigger on this one. We're applying. It also was one of the top schools. It's actually one of the top 50 schools in the world, and I think it still is. And so it has some academic prestige to it as well. And so that's all I wanted, was to get back to what I love doing. And I got accepted, signed that letter of intent, and I hopped on a plane and didn't look back.
Wow.
And you know what's crazy? So back to the intro, that's when I found you. It's probably right after the pivot from Navy was
Mhm.
when you were at Arcadia, and when you were looking for different schools, and then when you finally signed. Like now, I remember these. I remember these posts. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I think that's pretty
Yep.
dope. That's pretty dope. And to think that that was like for you, that was like the lowest part, of your life at the time, and for
Mhm.
you to like to push on and push forward, I think it's just a testament, man. So like, God bless.
Yep.
So what did this next chapter look like for you?
So man, like after, once I got over there, man, I competed. I was chosen to be in the Australia University Games, their men's 8. And then, but won quite a few medals over there. And it just, it's crazy because the support over there was unreal. Like, that one of the, like, rowing is a big sport, in Australia. And like, man, they like it, this will goes to show how crazy it is over there. During there, they call it the, I forgot the name of it, but they have like a high school, championship, and they literally close all the schools so the high schools can go and watch, and it's just like madness, and it's just so it was just so cool. The people, like some of my they call it like colleges, so I essentially see them as like they're like resident halls. They don't have frats over there, but like the resident halls, the colleges, they're like, I guess, the frats and sororities almost. And so like they would put up pictures like "Go Maurice" and "Good luck at championships," and they supported me. Like it was unreal. It was like I was living in a dream, because that was something that I wished that I had back home in the States. But I went over there and they embraced me. I mean, it was the best moment in my life. And it was crazy just how the table just flipped, back over. I was at my lowest and then just shot up, to my highest. And honestly, it just taught me how I should be treated. Like, and because like, again, like it just showed me, my happy place. Right. And so did that for about a year over there. Lived in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Trained in raced in and trained and raced in those three places. Also, raced in Adelaide, South Australia, like all up and down the coast. And then came home. Did one more year at Arcadia. So I ran cross country for the school as well as road. So in the mornings, I was rowing on Bullhouse Row for Undine Barge Club, and then in the afternoons I was training, for cross country. So I was doing two sports at one time. And most fit I've been, ever during that time. And I finished out, graduated, and then moved to DC. Got a job with the government, and then was training out of Potomac Boat Club, and training with their programs. Did that for about 6 years, and then you fast forward, and then now I'm out here in LA. Just moved out here in March of 2023, and I'm training out here with hopes, training the coastal rowing, beach sprints, with hopes to go to Olympic trials and make the U.S. team for LA 28. So that's where we are at this present moment.
That's dope. That's dope. To speak a little bit about Potomac, what was your time
Mhm.
like in DC? How'd you split right your work life and train? I feel like you trained a
Mhm.
lot when you were there. Can you just speak on that?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was hard. I was, during that time, I actually, was a police officer. And I was working like 11 and a half, 12-hour shifts. And the first 2 years was midnight shifts. So, graveyard, like, I was the vampire, right? And it was difficult. I'm not gonna lie, like, it's not your typical hours, it's not your, typical schedule. But I found a way to, stay in shape, and not been the shape that I needed at that point in time. But, for me, I wasn't going to give up rowing regardless of the cards that are being dealt to me at that point in time. And I knew I also had a purpose, in that profession. And so I was going to make it work. And then I was able to work my way into having like a better schedule, so then I could row all the time in the mornings and work out and lift and do all of that stuff. And so it worked itself out. In the beginning it was definitely rough, and during COVID, like, where it was a little, it was crazy, like the that whole era. But again, it worked itself out, and I was able to keep pushing forward and training and staying with sport. Because fast forward a few years back, I knew what it felt like not to have the sport, and I didn't really want to be in that position again. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was
Mhm.
this also around the time where you started doing kind of like I call them like extracurricular activities within rowing, where like you're commentating or you're mentoring and you're like because you used to travel, you still travel now, but you would travel to like different schools and stuff like that and like train with different teams. Like, how did that
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was good. Like for me, I just love going to different places and training and just seeing the culture of different boat houses. And so, I had a pretty decent network. And if I didn't, I created the network for myself and, went to different places, trained in the Bahamas, trained in the UK. Went back to Australia, trained there again, went to New Zealand. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go rowing. Weston, I got connected with Weston, where Mahi Drysdale trained out of, I got a cool experience. They took me out sailboat racing, instead, and it was a really really cool experience. And so, just being able to get connected to the global rowing community was just is just awesome, and just it gives us a new insight. Like U.S. rowing isn't the only rowing out there. We're being able to experience other places, other cultures, like people do things differently. And for me, I think when people get exposed to cultures outside of their own, they just grow as a human being and mature. Just because you realize your perspective isn't the only perspective, and people's different perspectives, for the most part, it can be beneficial, to your own life if you add it right.
Yeah, can we hear more about that? Do you have a specific event that happened to you that you learned something new, got a new
Yeah, man.
perspective?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to Australia, I went from, US is like, yeah, let's sweep, 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 sweep. Then I went over to Australia and it was like, yeah, nah, you're gonna learn to scull and race, in a single scull before you hop into a sweep boat. And mind you, I'm just like, I don't like sculling, like ill. Like, and the US system is always like sweep all day, and then sculling is like, the adopted, the family member, right? But over everywhere else is like sculling all day, every day, and then you hop into sweep boats. And so they forced me to learn how to scull in a single, race in a single, and it was the best thing that's happened to me, because it built the confidence that I can move a boat by myself. I didn't need others to move a boat. And then just being confident, being in a single, like that just takes a different type of confidence and a different type of like mental structure to be able to think about the technique as a more technical boat and whatnot. And I wholeheartedly agree that most scullers are good sweepers. You can't say the opposite. You can't say sweepers are going to be great scullers, right? And so there's obviously an importance to learning how to scull before you sweep, again, which the rest of the world and some of the best countries do anyway. So
And that's been a big trend that we've seen, at least in this podcast, is when we have international athletes or even some high performing US athletes, they usually start with sculling and then they
right.
move their way up to sweeping. So,
Yep.
and I know I had my personal journey when I got to college. That's when I actually really started to learn how to, row a boat and move a boat, because I could always do pretty, hard. I could always go hard on the erg, but I didn't
Mhm.
know how to like actually move a boat. So I had to get in a single, and that's what actually unlocked my strength in the boat. So it
Mhm.
makes sense. I was gonna speak on this. So your big move to LA happened about what almost 3 years now. Tell us about that. What gave you that? What was the deciding factor to say, I think I should go to LA. I'm gonna go on the other side of the country. And
Mhm.
what got you into coastal rowing?
Right. So I misspoke. I think I said 2023. It's actually, I came here March 2024. And so almost, yeah, March will be 2 years now. And I think what made me want to come over here was the coastal, like just the coastal scene. So obviously we know LA 28 is coming to Long Beach. And I really wanted to get ahead, of the curve and be able to like train on the coast and all that, right? And so I had a coach, Sherry Klein, world champion, and amazing scholar. Like she is honestly probably one of the best coaches, if not, the best coach that I've had when it comes to sculling. And so I wanted to, get some insight and some knowledge, by her. And I knew she was over here as well. And then there were some heavy hitters over here. Maddie Foe, who's on the U.S. senior national team. She's over here as well. I watched her as she, grew into the ranks as well. And so some good in her mom, and some really good, people over here. And so I knew like this was going to be my next step. Yeah.
That's pretty dope. It's
Mhm.
kind of interesting for me to see because a lot of my rowing mentors, you being one of them, right? The woman that taught me how to coach, Alyssa Treblecock, she's
Uh-huh.
into coastal rowing, and then Christine Cavallo, one of the first guests that we had on here, switched over to coastal. What do you like about coastal over standard rowing?
So I think that with coastal rowing, like, it's not your typical 2,000 meter piece, right? It's a spectator sport, as I like to say, and it's under 3 minutes. So like, tension span is easy to follow. There's so much that's happening, so much changes, within it. So you're starting on the beach, you're running to the beach, you're hopping in the boat, you're shaloming through, the buoys, you turn around, you to another sprint back to the beach, you hop out and you're running. Like, there is so much, like, every time you blink there's something different, that's happening, as in comparison to traditional flat water. And so that's why I call it like a spectator, a spectator sport, because you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen next, within a rowing race, a 2K race. I mean, somebody catches a crab, eject a crab, like, it's pretty typical about what's going to happen. Whereas, in beach sprints, you can get a crazy wave. Waves can crash you into the beach. You can trip and fall on the beach. You can fall over the boat. Like, there are so many other variables that can happen within beach sprints. And there's also gladiator style, like Henley style. Everybody loves Henley because of the dual racing. Well, this is the same thing, plus shorter, and a lot more variables can happen. So it'll catch the eye, honestly, of anybody that just loves, extreme sports.
And I think it works perfectly for you, especially someone that like you model, you do other things. And this is where we're gonna go head on over to for
Mhm.
Rowfluencer for this sport to be, eye catching way more than flat water because it's pretty predictable for the most part. You know which crews got it for the most part, unless someone catches an ejector crab or something like that.
Yeah.
You kind of understand where this is headed, right? For the most part.
Mhm.
So for you to be in such a unique sport and something that's like brand new, that's like novel, it's pretty dope. So how does that fall in line with like when you're working with like different like partnerships with such a
Mhm.
new sport? How does that work?
Dude, honestly, like, exactly how I just explained it to you, I just explained to, everybody else. And, they get intrigued. Like, for me, I know what, like, I'm very good at saying, like, looking at something, be like, oh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the sport to watch. And so, like, I just share that with others, and they share that same type of excitement, and passion. And, they want to be a part of something cool. Right. And so beach sprints is cool, and it's going to be around for a while. And so that's one of some of the top, like, some of the things that I bring up when I'm speaking with folks that don't even know what rowing is. Like, I explain both sports because I still do both. Like, I love both, like, I love rowing. That's just me. But bringing in this new format, it brings in more people. Honestly, it just brings in more people. And so people are interested, they want to be a part of it. And yeah, I mean, is this the pathway into talking about Rowfluencers, or what?
Go ahead.
Without a
Easy.
doubt, it is. Yeah.
Easy. So yeah, man. This is like my baby right now, bro. But, like, Rowfluencers, this has been something that's always been on my mind. Every rower has a story, regardless if they do beach sprints, flat water, indoor. Like, every rower, has a story. And throughout my life, I've told the story. The story, the story that I told on my social media connected me with UX. Like, I think all of our stories found our ways, to intertwine, and, racing with each other on the Charles. Like, these stories, because we amplified these stories, it brought us together. And so I want to help other rowers amplify their stories, and not only bring more people into the sport, but also bring more businesses and more partners into the sport, as well. And for me, I've been partnered with a bunch of different companies over the last couple years. And, there's not many rowers. I don't think there's any that's partnered with as many as I have. And so it's just like, okay, how do I help other rowers accomplish this, or even better, right? And so I thought about it, and that was, how Rowfluencers came about. We launched in August of last year, and I mean, we've been doing some amazing things. And one thing I will say is that, one, like, I didn't like this wasn't something like, oh man, I'm going to go to school for this. Like, no, this is literally, I've been learning a bunch of different stuff. I've been schooling myself on like being in the business and just learning the business side. But the one thing, you can't teach is passion, and that's what's helping me drive this thing. And so, first 4 months, we brought in 25,000, right, to the sport of rowing in different avenues. They say your average NIL deal is a little under $100. Every athlete that has gotten an NIL deal through Rowfluencers has made more than that. And so we're already hitting marks, and we've only been 4 months in. We're even expanding outside of rowing. So like we've partnered with brands that were within rowing, but we're now partnering with brands that are like international eSIM companies. We're partnering with brands that have security apps for your phone. I just got another, and I haven't announced this one yet, but which is fine. You can, post this wherever. But dude, we got a freaking video game that they want to partner with some of our athletes. Like, people told me this couldn't be done. Like, people told me that, we wouldn't be able to do this, you wouldn't be able to get paid. Like, people told me as an athlete, and people laughed. It was like, oh, this guy think he's sponsored. Like, well, no. Like, I mean, I had Sperry, who was one of my sponsors. They slid in my DMs and was like, how much you want to do this? Like, so I don't, I can't make these things up. And so I know it's possible. I'm a walking testimony of what's possible, and other athletes can do the exact same thing that I've been able to do. And so that's what we're doing. And we're moving. Like, I mean, I was in meetings with people. The net worth in rooms were like in the billions, right? And I'm telling my story and telling what I'm trying to do for the sport, and people are invested. I had someone come up to me that literally had the power to control $500 million in funds, and was like, what can we do to help? What can we do to get involved with this? And so it's possible. It's possible. You just got to have the right people. You have to have the right passion and fuel to get this out there, because people aren't going to believe, in your sport. Like, if you're not passionate about your sport or whatever it is, why would other people be passionate, or like be passionate about that, or even want you to be passionate about their company? Like, if you can't be passionate about something you quote unquote love doing. And so that's why you really need, behind marketing, you have to have somebody that's passionate, or it's not going to happen, right? And so that's kind of what Rowfluencers is doing. And I mean, like, there's some things that's going to be announced soon. But we're like, the sky's the limit. Like, we've already talked to some major sports broadcasting networks around the country. Like, we're full in, and the whole point of this is to uplift the sport of rowing. Why can't we be the NBA? Why can't we be, the NFL? Why can't we be F1, right? There's a lot of people that watch those sports or whatever, never picked up a basketball, never driven, a car, never picked up a football or anything like that, but they're fans of the sport. And why? Because they've been able to tell individual part of that pillar is telling the individual stories of the athletes. F1 was perfect. They had a Netflix film or series, and it just blew up, and F1 just blew up. Rowing can do the same exact thing. It's one of the oldest Olympic sports, one of the oldest sports in the world, and it's a sport that started off as a form of torture, and we do that for fun. Like that, bro. That, like, come on, like, that's like, why can't we, be cool? We got to make this thing cool. You got to have people that's driving it, that's passionate behind it, and that's the reason why Rowfluencers exist.
That's amazing. And I think that's the reason why we do RowingCast in general, is to get the story from each individual who gets into the sport. And
Yep.
like, they might have different like avenues. Like, you're on an entrepreneurial goal, but you're also training for like the Olympics. So that's two big things at the same time. We might interview someone that just became a coach, which a coach is still pretty influential, or
For sure.
someone that, goes into the corporate world, but they take the, the things that the lessons that they learn along the way within the sport, and moved it onward. So I think it's pretty dope to hear about this. And I'm thinking about it. NIL deals, we conventionally think about, right, the big sports, right, football, right, we think basketball, but we don't think about rowing. So what has some of these deals look like? I know we talked about, the SIM cards. I know we talked. Are we doing any deals with, like, that are more than that, like liquid IV type of deals, if that makes sense?
Yeah, bro. Like we're in the space where we're going after everything. Like if there's an NIL deal, I want a rower in that seat, regardless if that rower is in high school, college, Olympian, Paralympian. Like I want a rower in that seat, and that's the goal. Like we will. I'm going to sell this sport every day. I'm hustling, trying to bring more outside entities into the sport of rowing and connected it in some way, shape, or form, and using the athletes that are signed to me to get into these places in these seats, getting them paid like that is the main the main goal. And again, like there's times where you may have, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with this, but eventually like people are getting paid hundreds of thousands. For me, like I got paid thousands to do like social media stuff, right? And so the goal is to get people to that level, and having those them random ambassador like signups, and then you have to pay for the gear. You just get like 20% off and call yourself an ambassador. Like those are cool, but we're not trying to do that. Like we're already behind as a sport in terms of marketing, and being able to tell you stories. Like we're hitting this thing hard, and there's people out there that are paying. I just told you, like we brought in 25,000 in the first 4 months to different athletes and clubs. So we're like people are wanting to help out. We just got to get the story out there, and doing stuff like that and not really giving us a platform. Like unfortunately, we're just not going to be wasting. Like I said, I'm not going to say wasting time, but we want to make sure that our athletes are well represented and our athletes' voices are heard, as well as our coaches, because I also want to help coaches get their stories out there. But we want to make sure nobody's taking advantage of when it comes to that, and it benefits the athlete in some way, shape, or form. We want to make sure that happens.
And I think a great observation that I see right now is just from your transition from coming back from Australia, you kind of saw how they respected the sport. Now, when you
Hmm.
came back, you were like, all right, I'm going to be respected in the same way that I was respected over there.
Right.
I know, basically, I know my worth, and I know exactly, you're not going to be able to get one over on me. So
So,
I always got to commend you on that as well. Um, so yeah, let's talk about any individuals. Who were the first few people that you signed to your agency?
yeah, so we have Amanda. She rose out of Orion. She's on that, and Orion's like the powerhouse, like the woman powerhouse in the country right now. We have Danny Hansen, the most decorated Paralympian in U.S. rowing history. We have Aisha Rafi, who's Singapore's only their first single sculler to punch her ticket to Olympics, two-time Olympian. We have Mary Bain. She's a junior she's a junior coastal national team member. She just graduated, I believe, and is going to college. Excuse me. We have Aaron Kirby, who's at who's now at Texas. We have Inez, who's at UCF. So like we have so many, and she's on the Spanish national team as well. We're training with the Spanish national team. She's on that national team track for Spain. And so we have some pretty heavy hitters on our team. Like I mean, our whole list, like they go through a whole process to even get with Rowfluencers. Like there's a whole interview process. We review applications, things like that. And so everybody that is a Rowfluencer that has some type of story. I mean, Gianna, Alexa Mueller. Alexa Mueller is on the national team track as well. She's at University of Minnesota. Gianna is a coxswain for University of Minnesota men's. She's also a skateboarder. Alexa Mueller, she's a singer. Like so, we also pick people that have different things outside of the sport and different, populations that they connect with to bring inside of the sport. And so, it's awesome. All of these individual athletes, I mean, they just have something bright, and something awesome to bring to the table. I wish I can take everyone, but obviously, we're just starting up. And for the most part, it's just me making these things happen. But as we start to scale and do all that, like I want to get everybody, because again, everybody has a story, and I believe that 100%. But we want to make sure we're strategic about how we're moving and strategic about how we're doing the storytelling, and really hitting it hard to make sure that these partnerships that we're creating, they're lasting and they're staying within the sport, and they're investing in the sport to really bring the sport up.
Corey, you got anything?
Yeah. So, what do you think is consistent between all these athletes that make them that get them to the spot that you bring them?
Passion. Like I said, passion. We're looking for passion. Like, I don't care how many followers you got. Like, I mean, we have people that only have a couple hundred to thousands, right? We're looking for passion, because if you have that passion, you know, you can get that. I started out with 0 followers. Everybody starts out with 0 followers, right? But my passion is what got me to where I am right now. And passion drives. Like, I don't care what nobody says. Passion drives. Again, I was in a room with billionaires, right? And they saw the passion and they're like, I want to help. They felt it, man. Like, you can't fake passion. You cannot fake it at all. And so people can look right through that. And so I'm finding people that have that passion, that wants to drive this sport forward, because passion is what's going to bring, you know, this sport to the mainstream.
And when the sport does get to mainstream, you see how I say when the sport becomes mainstream.
Facts.
Yeah, all right. Like, what do you think is just going to how do you think people are going to react? What do you think they're going to get out of this sport? Like, what do you think is going to bring to the mainstream audience?
Honestly, again, it's grit grind. Like, I mean, rowing is one of those gritty sports. We talked about it earlier. Like, it's one of those sports where there isn't no substitutions. There isn't, you know, any type of timeout breaks or anything like that. And it's very similar to running. I mean, you know, there's a bunch of fans of the marathon, right? They're doing the same thing over and over again. There's a bunch of fans to track and field, cross country. Like, you know, these are very similar and comparable sports. Swimming also very comparable as well. And, you know, those are pretty big, right? USA track and field, like, it's pretty big. And so there's excitement that goes into those sports, and it's the exact same thing, you know, for rowing. It is literally the exact same thing. We're just on the water, and again, with rowing, there's a bunch of different things, you know, that can happen. I mean, we've seen, you know, there's still some cool stuff that happens during like traditional 2Ks. We've seen it all at Henley. There's people running in the pylons and stuff, like, it's crazy, right? But also beach sprints, like, that's also going to be on a new frontier for the sport of rowing, and really will bring in a lot more eyes just to the rowing space in general. And, you know, a lot of people complain that, you know, it's going from a 2K to a 1500. But honestly, at the end of the day, you know, human beings' attention spans are but so much, right? And so having a shorter race may bring more people. More people may want to watch it just because it's shorter, and some more things can possibly happen within that shorter distance. Like, you know, who knows? You know, at the end of the day, but I'm looking on the bright side of everything, and our future is bright. You know, and again, as long as, you know, we have people that are passionate about the sport and want to tell the tale, you know, outside of their door, all the way across the world and back again, like to tell, you know, far and wide.
And then within the social media world, right, we have micro influencers, and then we have those macro, those bigger ones. So,
Yep.
you know, I'd always consider you a bigger one. What advice would you give to someone to build to that? Is it just showcasing the passion, or is there a more strategic way to go about it?
Man, they're like, be yourself. Like, I'm be honest with you, bro. Like, and this is something that I'll start to elaborate a little bit more. You know, just to put some good stuff out there through Rowfluencers. But like, companies don't care about seeing you with a selfie with an ERG score, right? Like, it's great, it's good. Like, our ERG scores is our resume, you know, getting into colleges and things like that. But in the NIL space and the marketing space, like, they don't care about that. They care about who you are as a person. They care about, you know, obviously they care about how hard you work and your work ethic. But they also care about some of the things you do outside of your sport as well. Like, how are you with the community? What are some things you do? Or how are you as a teammate? Or what are some of your outside hobbies? Things like that. I mean, if you look at it, like, you know, basketball players, all their sponsorships aren't just basketball. Like, some may have, you know, a Church's Chicken, you know, sponsorship. Some may have you know, a nail polish sponsorship. Like, there's different athletes that just like different stuff, right? And they're getting connected with these brands. So like, you don't like, as an athlete looking into that space, like, open the horizon. Like, rowing isn't your world, right? Like, again, rowing is a part of our fabric, and don't get me wrong, like, I want it to be a part of my life forever, but you also have some other things to bring to the table that is just as important and should be, you know, represented. So for me, going overseas to Australia, I didn't just show rowing. Like, that was a big part of the story, but I also wanted to show the culture behind it. I wanted to show, you know, the Sydney Opera House, the traveling aspect of it. I wanted to show, the friends that I made. I wanted to show, some of the nightlife that I became a part of. Like I wanted to just show the full picture of what I was doing over there. And that's a lot. Again, the companies, want to see that. And, working with some big companies like Vineyard Vines, I worked with Sperry, working with, Rolling Blazers, Wintech, all of the Pit Viper, all of these different companies. Like they just want to see who you are as an overall person, because they want to know, like, if you will represent, their brand well, right? And, being a good rower does not tell them that you will represent the brand well. It's about who you are, again, as a person, and how you carry yourself, through life. And if you have good qualities that match and align with that company.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Thanks for the game. I was gonna
Mhm.
say, I want to highlight a little bit of your commentating. Speak on how you got into commentating, and then like, what were your favorite events to commentate, and do you still plan on doing that, or are you gonna be more focused on this? What does that
Mhm.
look like?
Heck yeah, man. Commentating is so much fun. Like I just kind of stepped into that. I didn't really know about it. I got asked, hey, you want to guest commentate? And did it. And I was like, man, I love this thing, right? Best event, hands down, is youth national championships. Like hands down. You want to know why? Because that is where you get to see the raw passion, the raw voices, the emotions. Like these are student athletes, right? They, by day they are, or that 8 to 3 or whatever their timing is, they're in school studying, but whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., like they're grinding, nonstop to be able to get onto that stage. And so, being able to commentate, these are the best crews in the country. Like you have to qualify to be there. If you're there, you're already one of the best, right? And so, being able to see the vibes and the energy of these youth athletes, and then, talking with the champions, like, we now have, our champions doc, where anybody that wins gets to come and talk to me and tell me that the raw emotion of how they feel about coming on top of the United States as a national champion. Like that is huge, extremely huge, and it's a big deal. And to get the raw emotion of, some of these athletes are seniors. Like this was their last hoorah before they go to college, and so they deserve to have their voices heard. And I'm just, a conduit, like a conduit to getting those voices heard. Like, I'll ask the questions, and make it open ended, so they can just let the world, know how they feel about, coming out on top. And hands down, Youth Nats best event that I commentate in, and definitely, like, by far right now, like the like my favorite.
I was gonna speak on that. So at Nats, when you see him at the medal podium, man, sometimes I'm thinking, wow, these kids are so thoughtful, man. They just work their ass off for like the
Yep.
last, 2,000 meters. And then for them to come out, sometimes they sound like a poet. You're like, damn, you had all that in you. I was like, all
Right.
right. Like,
Right. You ain't
so
pull hard enough. You ain't pull hard enough. You shouldn't be able to talk. Nah, but it's crazy because most of the people that come onto the dock, like, they're like, can I get some water? I'm like, absolutely. Because we have water for them, because we already know, like, that was your last race. Like, you put it all on the line. Most of them put it all on the line, man. And it's just, we let them, get their breath, take a little breather. But we also want to know, like, the raw emotion. Because again, what other sport, national championship that doesn't interview the national champion? You tell me. There isn't any. Like, national champions are interviewed, and so we want to give them the same respect that all other sports get. And that's, again, a testament of bringing up rowing to being, the cream of the crop, with the cream of the crop sports that we have in our country.
yeah, that definitely fits in line with your vision as well, I think. So, um, man, Maurice, we're so thankful to have you on, and we could have you on for 5 more episodes if we needed to,
Facts.
but we really appreciate it. Is there any final thoughts to this episode, or any shout outs? Oh, I did want to ask you about this, so I guess let me ask you this question, and you can like give your final thoughts. But like,
Mhm.
tell me about your work with originally it was Athletes Without Limits, then it turned
Mhm.
into Unity.
Mhm.
We've rode for Unity. We always love hanging out with the Unity crew.
Yep.
You want to speak on that for a little bit?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're still growing, we're still expanding, and it's good because, I can now bring in Unity, with my Rowfluencer wing, and really, push, building, that type of program, across the country. Having these community oriented programs are important. It connects, the cities that they're in to the sport, and we want to, push that far and wide. There's so many, others out there that's doing it. Most beautiful thing with Arshay and everything, and he's doing his thing. There's different grants by US Rowing, Row New York, Row Boston. Like we have Row Tampa. Like there's so many different entities that are really, investing in that. And so with Unity, we just want to continue to serve the youth, serve the veterans, serve athletes with disabilities, because rowing is a sport for everyone. I don't care where you come from, what you look like, what disability you have. Like we can make this sport, for you. And we want to bring as many people into the sport. And so we're continuing to press on with Unity, and Brooke Yimmer, who's the president right now, is doing a daggone good job with doing that, and executing, our the mission for Unity. And, again, he's doing an amazing job. And Patrick Johnson, and everybody that's involved with the Unity Boat Club. And, we're going to continue to, expand and get ourselves into different places to help serve as many communities as we can.
Another unique moment that I just want to mention was my first ever Charles was 2021. Steve Perry took me to the Charles, and I'm walking down the course, and a guy I looked up to because he rode in my area, Matt Hauser. I see him walking around, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a race tomorrow, X." And I was like, "Oh, no way! Like, how's that going?" He's like, "Oh, I'm racing with Maurice Scott. You know that?" I was like, "Yeah, I know who Maurice Scott is." And then you guys met him, and I'm like, "Man," I was like, "Yo, isn't that wild?" My first trip, two people I've known like almost my whole rowing career together in a boat, kicking ass. So
full circle, man. Bro. It's crazy. Matt
really
Man. I call him Matt Man. They call it's funny. Marcus Brown. He's like, that's you got Matt Man and I'm Robin, right? So it's Matt Man and Robin. He's the man now. I mean, he's a dog, man, and he's kept up. He's kept me going. I know this past head of the Charles, bro. Like we freaking sprinted from Elliott all the way to the finish line. Like, and I was like, bro, you're right. This is going to hurt, but you're right. Let's just go. Cause we just never know. Cause the year before that, we lost by less than a second. I don't even know. It was just close. He's like, bro, let's just go. And I'm like, all right, let's just go. And it paid off in the end. But nah, man, he's a beast, and everywhere he goes, like he blesses the club. I know he was at Founders. He's I feel like this dude just is everywhere, just blessing any team that he's a part of. And so every team that has had him was lucky to have him and have that type of individual around to uplift the program. So
without a doubt, lastly, shout out to the Philly guys, man. You're the number one Philly guy that I reached out to. I reached out to some peers who are around the same age as me, and they always gave me insight as well. So I just want to thank you once again for everything you've done. And we'll see each other throughout the year. So it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Any final thoughts, Corey? If you got another question, right, it's your time.
Yeah, well, I'll finish out with saying like, one, it was really cool to see y'all at the Charles back to back. That was really dope. I'll say, what do you see in the near future? Let's hear some big overarching goals for the next 5-10 years.
Man, like you're gonna see, we'll be partnered with Under Armour, Nike. Like the lane is already there. I already know who we're talking to right now. Like, and we've already reached a pinnacle in a couple different lanes. People just don't know about it yet, but next couple of months people will know about it, and they're gonna be like, ain't no way. And I'm like, way, I told y'all this was gonna happen. I told y'all I was gonna execute. And I'm sorry, I don't even know what did Drake say in the Forever song. He said he said what's the line, man? I'm gonna have to look this one up real quick. He said, I'm looking this one up because, man, I literally live by this line. It's Forever by Drake lyric. I'm looking up the lyrics right now, but I literally live by this line because a lot of people are going to doubt you, and that's how you're doing something right. But hold on. He said, he said, everybody got a deal. I did it without one. He said, yeah, I'm about my business. Killing all these rappers. You will swear I had a hit list. Everyone who doubted me is asking for forgiveness. If you ain't been a part of it, at least you got to witness. And like hands down, that's how we're doing. And I already know that's exactly how we're moving. I know there's people doubting, but again, they said we couldn't make no money, off rowing. We couldn't bring anybody in. Man, we bought 25 grand into the sport, and that was nothing. Wait until y'all see what happens this year.
I'm excited, man.
That's been our episode with Maurice Scott. If you want to reach out to him. Maurice, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at the Reese Life, TheReeseLife, or at Rowfluencers. You can also go to Rowfluencers.com. You can see, all of our athletes on there. I actually have to update it because we've been signing some pretty major individuals onto the team. And you find me anywhere, Google, whatever, you'll find me. And I do want to say, man, I appreciate y'all, because again, this is a team effort. We're trying to move this sport forward, and not one person can do it. And so having podcasts and RowingCast and different podcasts and different media outlets, pushing the sport forward, like, it takes a community to do that. And y'all are killing it. Keep grinding, keep doing that, because we need each other at the end of the day. This is all cliche, but you can't have 8 different strokes get to the finish line. The faster, you got to have one unified stroke within an 8. And we all are in our lanes, and as long as we're moving this sport forward and moving to that finish line, we're going to make it. We're going to get to be the cream of the crop, mainstream sport. We just got to keep pressing forward. So appreciate y'all.
We appreciate it. Hey, you guys, it's been RowingCast. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out.